An opportunity came up at Cricket World Cup 2015. Got the interview, did the interview, it went okay. Got a call back a week later, come around for a second round. I was like, oh my God. I was like, right, so I actually had to go to Ballarat that day for work. So I thought, all right, I'll go to Ballarat, I can get the train back by 3, and I'll be enough time to get this interview by 5. Train at 2, great. Train is cancelled.
Oh no.
Right, okay. Next train's at 3. Right, still gets me back around 4:30. Okay, it's not ideal, but I'll make it work. That train is now delayed. So we're getting there, we're creeping into Southern Cross, phone dies. Somehow I've scrambled down from Southern Cross. I'm like, this dream is about to die. Get to the interview, I'm a hot mess. And they said, oh, where were you? I was about 25 minutes late. I was on the train, they're like, look, it happens, it's okay. And just take a breath. Eventually the GM comes in, John Kent. We sort of had a quick chat about it all. Driving home, get a phone call, hey Sunil, you're great, we want to have you on board. And I was like, what?
G'day guys, coming up on the show today is Sunil Menon. Sunil is the head of community at Melbourne City Football Club. He is one of the all-round great guys in the industry with a great set of experience, including multiple Cricket World Cups in 2015 and the T20 World Cup here in 2020, Charlton Football Club in the UK, and then the AFL back here in Australia. Heaps to look out for in this ep with what it's like to work within the City Football Group, what skills you need to work in the community department, and where to start if you're looking for a job in this space. Let's go.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2.
Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad podcast. Ruben is dancing in front of me after that intro. How brilliant is that? Welcome. This is the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry. I'm joined by Ruben Williams. My name is Ryan Walker. He's the big community guy, and we are two mates who met at Cricket Australia back in the day. Each week, we learn how people made it in sports, and we tease out some of their career decisions, their work habits, their skills, and everything they do that makes them great. Also, you can learn how to get in, get promoted, and get thriving in the sports industry. Rubes, how are you? Almost made me crack up then.
239 episodes and you finally doubled up on an adjective.
Yeah, the big community guy. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Appropriate. I don't know if I'm disappointed in you or if it's appropriate with Sunil coming in.
But, it needed to happen. Head of community.
Look, it's probably happened once before. We just didn't even realise.
Yeah, I reckon it has.
Our thesauruses aren't that big, so.
If there's any mention of community in the title or anything, I have to say big community guy. You are a massive community guy.
We love community.
Yeah. What's been happening? Brisbane was great.
Brisbane was fantastic. How good are the Broncos and the Panthers? Wow, what a team.
What an experience.
So one of the great privileges we have of doing this podcast is that we have to record at the same time every week to make sure we get out the next week. So we just have to forecast some events that happen between that time sometimes. So we're going to Brisbane tomorrow and me the day after from this recording, but we're predicting it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
If it's not and it doesn't go ahead, well, I'm not editing this, so we're not changing it.
Yeah. So, I'm sure Brisbane was incredible. Suncorp Stadium, great stadium.
Thank you to everyone who came as well. Great to see you
Met
as well.
Met some great people.
Yep. New faces, some old faces.
Yeah. That's fantastic. We've got a big app today, so let's get cracking. If you haven't already, follow us on LinkedIn. You can connect with us and hundreds of others working in sport. Just become a SportsGrad member straight away. Ruse, what's been happening in our community at the moment?
Oh, gosh, so much. It's been popping off the last few weeks. The Wins Challenge is just going nuts, and I've got a few for you here. I'll start with Alyssa Cullinan, who received an awesome position doing grassroots football game activations with Channel 9.
Nice.
Then we got Anantvir Singnanya, who has just got a role as the accreditation coordinator at the FIFA Women's World Cup. Then sticking with the FIFA Women's World Cup, we've had about 24 people get roles with the FIFA Women's World Cup in the last few weeks.
I was going to say that the channel is just, all I see is FIFA Women's World Cup jobs.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
That's it. Jordan Dana and Sid Moham have both also joined the volunteering team for the FIFA Women's World Cup. So well on to you guys. The tournament's just going to be full of members.
Yeah.
Anyone who goes to a game, you look around, there'll be a SportsGrad member there working in some sort of role. But that is amazing. Well done to you guys. A couple other things coming up. We have regular speed networking nights. So if you want to meet new members very quickly without having to send sort of any sort of awkward cold outreach, just come to a speed networking night and you can meet a whole bunch of people very, very quickly.
Yep.
The other thing that we have coming up as well are job fairs. So this is a chance where you can chat directly with the recruiters and they can tell you how to get hired at their organisation. And one of the great job fairs that we had last week was with the FIFA Women's World Cup. Hence, everybody is getting hired.
Yep.
When you can chat directly to the HR manager, they remember your name and you get jobs.
There's a direct correlation.
Yeah.
So
and it was very similar to the job fair that we ran with the T20 World Cup last year.
Yeah.
That had a massive turnout as well. And then we saw pretty much half the community working on the T20 World Cup, and now the same thing's happening with the FIFA World Cup.
Yep.
So they are one of the greater virtual events to get along to, where you can just pick the brain of the person choosing employees for a tournament.
Yeah. I think it's good because, you get a job description. Everyone's read a job description. You can see that online. But when you can actually chat to someone and ask them about the ins and outs, you can unearth more information about what the job is really like day to day. So we absolutely love them. That's where you're going to get all that key info. And you can also put a face to a name and you can actually introduce yourself. So get along to them.
That's it.
Yeah.
Last thing, if you want to be even more well-informed about what you can do in the sports industry and how you can get to any job you've got in mind, make sure you subscribe to the SportsGrad newsletter for more interviews, blogs, career paths, and then as well a whole bunch of tips on networking and job hunting. There's over 3,500 people who subscribe and enjoy it every single week. So if you want to jump on that, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter, and that'll be in your inbox next week.
Fantastic. Well, guys, enjoy this chat with Sunil Menon. There's a reason Deacon's sports management course attracts the greatest talent the nation has to offer. Because when you join the longest running sports management course in Australia, you'll gain access to unique opportunities with leading clubs and organisations. Their partnerships with the Geelong Footy Club, Deakin Melbourne Boomers and Netball Victoria and multiple elite industry partners will open the door to exciting placement experiences that connect you with the best athletes, managers and administrators in sport. Help shape the future of the sports industry. Secure your part in the golden decade of sport. Sunil, great to have you on the podcast, mate. Welcome.
Thanks, you boys. Good to see you again. Long way from not really a long way from Jollymore, but good to see you again after a few years.
I know, good to finally have you back in here. And from all reports, you're now one of the most popular staff members at Melbourne City. I keep bumping into staff members out in Richmond, and I mentioned my friend Sunil, and they're like, "Oh, we love Sunil." So I'm sure this will get a few listens at HQ.
Yeah, look, all three people who love me at Melbourne City will, I'm sure, be tuning into this podcast. But yeah, I don't think a club that has Socceroos like McLaren and Lecky, I don't think I'm too popular. I think I'm quite a way down the list there.
Well, what's it like at HQ at the moment? Because the club has just won their third Premier's Plate in a moment. You've got this big redevelopment coming in Casey. Things look like they're going pretty good. Yeah,
look, on field, terrific. Third Premiership in a row, in the middle of finals, play Sydney FC home and away in the next 2 weeks. A huge development coming there at Casey Fields. We've got 3 community pitches that go along with that, and then elite pitches for our men's and women's team as well. And that facility will hopefully be launched sort of around October time. But it's exciting. The Southeast is really a heartland of football, or the round ball football, and we're so lucky to be a part of that. And there's so many people that sort of access those fields every day just to come and have a kick and be a part of it. And we're looking to grow with that community and see where that can take us.
It's awesome. It from an outsider's point of view, it just looks like City is just doing it better than most at the moment, like on the field and off the field. That must be pretty cool.
Yeah, look, it's great. It's a great time to be a part of it. I've got some sort of young staff members, and it's their first job in sport, and they just collect Premier's plates every year and go to grand finals. I'm like, guys, this is not sort of how it goes, When I worked at Charlton in London, I started there. We were 4th in the championship, and I thought, texting my mates back home, I'm going to be in the Premier League next year. It's going to be amazing. And then we got relegated.
Yeah.
Not fun. And my mates call me the relegator now. Not that I have anything to do with on-field success. But
Wait till there's that second league in the A-League and the curse might come back to you. But I highly doubt that, given that you're at Melbourne City. We start every episode with some quick-fire questions for you so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So I'll fire off the first one, and that is, what was your first ever job?
So my first ever job, my sisters are going to love this. I stacked shelves at Big W. I lasted a week.
Nice.
I was just not cut out for it.
Did you leave on your own accord?
Yeah.
Oh, there was some doubt there.
Yeah. It was, I reckon, another 2 days. It wouldn't have been on my own accord.
Fair enough. We might take that offline. What did you study at university?
So I did a Bachelor of Business, Sport and Leisure Management at La Trobe, and I'm currently actually studying an MBA, the world's slowest MBA.
Nice.
I might break the record, but it's going well, and that's at Deakin University, which shout out Deakin University.
The sponsors will love that.
Great friends of the show. Favourite sporting moment?
There's a few. I try to say the ones you were actually at, because that kind of, I think, adds to it. So Liverpool Melbourne victory at the MCG, 95,000 people singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" as a Liverpool supporter, pretty cool. Amazing first experience for me as a Liverpool supporter, seeing it live. Then fortunate enough to be at Anfield for a Merseyside derby, 4-0 against Everton, which is always great.
Yeah.
And being in and around the city in the build up to that game at pubs and stuff before that, like that's unbelievable. That's just on another level of sort of sporting dreams, I think. And then hard to go past India, Pakistan, T20 World Cup, Virat Kohli. Incredible. Was there with my dad and my brother-in-laws, and they wanted to leave. I didn't want to leave though. And it was amazing. And also 2015 Adelaide as well, India, Pakistan at Adelaide again. First time being in that environment of seeing those two massive countries play against each other, and the colour, the movement, the noise, and obviously an India win, which is always good.
Yeah, amazing. And do you have a favourite interview question that you like to ask of candidates?
I kind of do all the serious stuff, get all that out of the way quickly, and I like to know a little bit about the person. So I always ask, what's your favourite holiday that you've been on? And it just shows me a little bit about, do you like to relax at the beach? Are you an adventurer? Is it Europe or America, Asia? If they say I like Kuta and Bali, I'm feel like. No, I'm joking.
I like bintang in the pool.
Nothing wrong with bintags. Absolutely.
Totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. What's one book or podcast that's helped you at work?
So I'm a big Diary of a CEO fan, Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Huge, like religious on that one. Just find the insights you get from people who've built massive businesses and failed, or have had projects that haven't worked and how they've overcome them. So that's been really good. And then a whole gamut of people from business and sport and music, which I like the whole sort of range around that. A great episode, if you haven't listened to, is Scott Galloway is a professor, talks about sort of the change in young people and masculinity and all those sort of things, and has a really interesting take on that. And then I love all the sport ones, so big cricket fan, great cricketer. I think those kind of insights into sport, like the funny stuff, is always great, and it's always stuff that you guys probably know a bit about from your time at CA, but the average sort of punter, I think, doesn't really know about that stuff, so it's great to hear those sort of stories. Peter Crouch podcast as well, big fan of that. And so just mainly football and cricket ones.
Amazing. Well, we had Ian Higgins come on the show back into episode 213, and Sam Perry, the other half of the great cricketer, is coming in soon. So I'm glad you brought that one up. They're a great podcast.
We're preparing our vocal chords for the laughter.
Yes.
Because the first one with Ian Higgins was the funniest episode in the history of my short podcasting career. So, yeah.
Are you associated with any grassroots clubs?
So was associated with a club called Victorian Sikh Association, where we played soccer, and that was kind of in my sort of early uni years. Very loosely associated with the club now, still checking the scores and see how the guys are going. But what it did do for me is, at that time, like those guys are my brothers still. Like, we're still mates. We don't hang out as much now because everyone's got kids and families and life and all that sort of stuff. But in those sort of, early 20s years, they were the best nights. Used to go out on a Friday, play on a Saturday, recover on a Sunday, and then do it again. And then somehow squeeze uni into it, and that sort of thing. So, but great memories and great times. And like I said, we were all still really, really close mates, which is a great bond to have.
Nice. Love it. And last one, if you had 30 minutes to pick someone's brain, who would that be?
So I've got a fun one and a serious one. Oh, it's a couple of fun ones. So Sachin, just because if you're my generation and Indian background, then it's just got to be Sachin. Otherwise, you get a fine or something. Yeah. The other one would probably be Nelson Mandela, just from a purely, resilience point of view, and just what he went through is incredible, an incredible book as well. And then a fun one, probably Snoop Dogg.
Oh yeah,
nice. It's just just for fun.
Yeah, I love that.
just to see, just see what's up.
I love how most people who come on here are like pretty serious with their people. Like, yes, like you said, Nelson Mandela's of the world, the Sachins, but Snoop Dogg is a bit out there, and I like that.
What would you ask Snoop Dogg?
Who shot Tupac? Get the real answers.
Yeah, that's a good question. Great question.
Amazing. Well, we might dive into the wonderful world of community and the work that you're doing at Melbourne City now. For those who aren't aware of what a community department does, sometimes it's called the game development department. What is the goal of this department within a sporting club?
Sure. So City in the Community is the charitable arm of the Melbourne City Football Club. So our goal is to uplift physical and mental health of young people through football. So we look at football as a vehicle, but then how do we sort of use football to engage? And then how does that lead into things like talking about education, employment, well-being, gender equity, those sort of topics. So our goal is really around social impact. So how we can use football for social impact. So in a sporting sense, when you work at, some of the big SSAs and that sort of thing, it's about the numbers, like you're going to get into schools and you want school to club conversion and you want, numbers of people playing a game. For us, it's more about not so much the numbers, but more so around what impact are we having at those programs. So how are we talking to young people, and then using that as an opportunity to talk about other factors. So it's really important, and I think in the region that we're in the southeast of Melbourne, football, round ball football is the number one sport in that region, and they keep building AFL ovals, and we keep pushing soccer goals onto them because such is the demand in that part of Melbourne. So we've got a really unique opportunity to work with a lot of large migrant groups as well. And a lot of people who love the game but can't afford to play at a club level. So our programs almost act as a club on a weekly basis for a lot of people. So it's great. It's a great thing to be a part of, and you just see so much passion for the sport, which is terrific.
And how you get so close with all the players, because I believe they come out with you to all these different programs.
They do. The players, we're so lucky to have Socceroos and Matildas in our midst, and they're great when they come out and interact with young people and share a bit of advice or share a few stories, take a few selfies, all that sort of stuff. And it's an amazing thing to see, a program that you've sort of worked on for a little while and you've built a relationship with students and teachers or at schools or whatever, and then you sort of swan in with a Matt Leckie or a McLaren, and people's sort of eyes sort of drop out of their head, which is pretty cool. And it's a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of those students and a lot of those teachers in schools. So it's cool to be able to do those things as well.
Yeah, I like how community for you guys is like that charitable arm, and a little bit different to what the goal of say an NSO would be, which is like mass participation. Whereas like working community at a football club like Melbourne City is more about like physical and mental health. Like it's a more targeted approach. Like has that been really, I guess, rewarding for your career to be involved in that specific area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is pressure around numbers, and you need to be out there and doing that. But I think we've only really been in the southeast probably a good year and a bit now, given COVID and lockdowns. We moved in August 2021, so we've only had a good year and a bit to really get into it. And I think what we're also doing is, when you look at schools, schools it's a tough environment at the moment for teachers. There's teacher shortages, and what's really suffering is sport and young people playing sport. So we can almost act as a gap filler for that. But we've also seen stuff where teachers and principals are saying, we know your program's on a Friday afternoon. Our attendance Monday to Thursday is pretty low or patchy. Friday it shoots right up. because I know they're going to get football after school. And we're not coming with a player. We're not coming with anything major. We're just there to deliver a football program for an hour or two, and that's enough to keep people engaged. So that is quite rewarding to know that, you know, just by being there and building those relationships, we're making a big impact, which is great.
Nice. Keen to hear what the series of experiences were that led to you becoming head of community at Melbourne City. Can you take us through some of your previous roles as well?
Sure. So start from the start, really.
Yeah. Let's go right back. Charlton days.
Even before that, really. Yes, sport and leisure management at La Trobe. From there, did a bit of work as a casual coaching with some programs in and around Heidelberg and that sort of area, which was close to uni. And it's just like pure laziness where I just applied for the job because I'm like, oh, that's next to uni, that'll do. So let's go. This is like the 101 of not how to do a sports grad.
As you do back in the day.
Okay, good. So I took that opportunity and from there met some people who worked in this sort of larger area around multicultural sport and recreation and engaging communities in sport. And met one person called, his name is Nick McHale, legend of a guy, and he worked at a place called Centre for Multicultural Youth. And he sort of said to me, literally 4 days after I finished my last exam, hey, I'm leaving, and I reckon you'd be great to do this job. And I was like, I don't think this is how it's meant to work, but okay, sounds great. So took that role. So it was a joint role with Centre for Multicultural Youth and Vic Health, where you sort of were on the ground in the southeast of Melbourne, and it's kind of funny how it's come sort of full circle now and I'm back in the southeast. Essentially running sports programs for young people in those areas, so across a whole different range of sports as well. So that was sort of 2 years of that. That morphed into a more policy role with Vic Health, where you work with sport around systemic change, around how to engage different communities in sport and what policies and procedures could happen to make that change. And did that, and it was fantastic. So that was about 4 years in total in that role, and an opportunity came up as a community engagement and comms coordinator at Cricket World Cup 2015. And I thought, Cricket World Cup, like, I know that trophy. It's pretty cool. I'd love
seen that once or twice.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to be involved with that. Shot an application in. Around that time, I actually got married, went on a honeymoon, came back, never heard anything from it. It's like, well, that dream's just died and we'll just keep cracking on, so that's fine. Got the phone call. We'd love to have you in for an interview. I was like, oh my God, an interview? Like, that's amazing. So great. This is actually quite a funny one. So I got the interview, did the interview, it went okay. I thought it went okay. Got a call back a week later, come around for a second round. I was like, oh my God.
It's getting real.
What could be in the door here? Like, let's take this seriously now. So I thought, right. So I actually had to go to Ballarat that day for work. So I thought, all right, I'll go to Ballarat. I can get the train back by 3, and I'll be enough time to get to this interview by 5. It's in South Melbourne, right? So Southern Cross, straight in South Melbourne, bang. Go to Ballarat, do the work, not thinking about anything to do in Ballarat that day. Sorry, Ballarat.
Yeah.
I was just like, got to get there. Train at 2, great. Train is cancelled.
Oh, no.
Right, okay. Next train's at 3. All right, still gets me back around 4:30. Okay, it's not ideal, but I'll make it work. That train is now delayed. Right, okay. So we're getting there. We're creeping into Southern Cross. Phone dies. Right, and I've left messages for the HR manager, and they haven't gone through. I don't know. And then somehow I've scrambled down from Southern Cross. I'm changing on the escalator. Like, it's just a mess. I'm like, this dream is about to die. Like, I can't believe this is going to happen. Get to the interview, I'm a hot mess. Like, I'm just sweating. I'm just it was just horrendous. And they said, oh, where were you? I was about 25 minutes late. And they said, where were you? I was like, I was on the train. They're like, look, it happens. It's okay. And just take a breath. I said, I've got my clothes. I can change. And they're like, no, just wear what you're wearing. Just, it's okay. It's all good. I was like, okay, well, this is first sign of a good workplace, right? They're like, well, they're not screaming at me, even though I've completely stuffed this up. And eventually the GM comes in, John Kent, and we sort of had a quick chat about it all. And I left, and I thought, you can't take someone seriously. He's just blown in that late, and yeah, whatever. Anyway, it is what it is. Driving home, get a phone call. Hey, Sunil, you're great. We want to have you on board. And I was like, what? Like, this is unbelievable.
On the same day?
The same day.
Wow.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, the same day. On the way home. So it was like half an hour later. And that's a massive life changer, because getting in that building, you've got people. So John Harden's the CEO, right? The grandfather of sport in Australia. He's just a legend. Brought the Australian Grand Prix to Melbourne, Com Games, all that sort of stuff. I'm sitting in this desk. On this side of me to the left is Nick Hockley, the now CEO of Cricket Australia, just come off London 2012, sorry. In front of me is John Kent. He used to run the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And I literally, on my first day, I went back and told my wife, I was like, I don't really think I should be here. Like, it's a bit awkward. Like, they're all so, like, so senior and so experienced. What do I bring to this table? And quickly figured out, that, I had my own skill set, and I think I had my own experiences, both lived and professional, that I could bring to the table that were really important. And another big part of it was just looking around, being like, right, well, I know I've got a year and a half here. I'm just going to be a sponge. I'm going to learn off all these guys and girls who are so experienced with major event experience around the world, cricket experience at CA and all that sort of stuff. What can I sort of take from this to make myself better? So that's a long time on one job, one job interview. So it's from there. That was a great experience. Literally got to take the 2015 World Cup around Australia. And, there are times where you just, like, you park into your hotel room and you've just got a case sitting there, which is the 2015 Cricket World Cup. And it's like, whoa. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like a lot of those pinch me moments.
Yeah.
Amazing experience and amazing people. And then from there, I quickly figured out probably one of the things I didn't have in my locker at that point was overseas experience. So made the decision with my wife to head over to London for a couple of years. I was fortunate enough to land a gig at Charlton Athletic Community Trust and Football Club. So it was a great role, great opportunity. Charlton were in the championship then, had a history of being in the Premier League sort of in the mid-2000s. Fantastic club based in South East London, do amazing community work. And it was an interesting experience. It was cold. It was wet. The championship is tough because you got 46 games as opposed to the Prem's got 38. You had cups in there, women's games, under 23s. Like, you're just doing match day after match day after match day. So it's pretty tough. But a great experience and great learning to understand how that community trust system works in the UK. Back to Oz at the AFL for a little while. That was terrific as well. In a game dev role, really focusing on multicultural communities. Worked on the first sort of India-China strategies for the AFL at that time. And eventually got the call from Nick Hockley, CEO, then the T20 World Cup, to say, look, we're putting the band back together, sort of thing, from 2015. Would you be keen? I said, absolutely. So back there as community engagement manager for the Women's T20 World Cup. So incredible experience. And you boys were around then. You sort of know that the energy and the vibe that was around the place at that time was terrific. And I think, I can genuinely say there was blood, sweat and tears that went into that year and a half of my life. Like, it was tough, but it was so rewarding to be at that final and to have your family there and to be on field with Katy Perry. I think I was with you guys with Katy Perry, weren't we? When we
I was on the field for that.
Yeah. So that was an amazing experience, and I learnt a lot in that year and a half. I probably neglected the home life a little bit, and that was probably a big learning from that, especially with a young family. But professionally, I think I grew a lot from those experiences. So, and then a little bit of work in the COVID period, that COVID years. Did some work with an NGO, and then fortunate to land at City in August 21, and here I am. That was a very long one. I apologise.
No, that was terrific. I love how it started steady, coming out of uni, not really sure what to do, and then all of a sudden you're like going through all these major tournaments. Like, your career's just like taken off in a heartbeat, and it's kind of, I don't know, if I was sitting at home listening to this, not knowing where my career is going to go, to see how quickly yours has turned upward is, incredibly motivating and inspiring for someone who is not sure where a career in sport could lead.
I appreciate that. Look, it's I think a big part of it is just saying yes and just figuring it out later, because I don't think I've ever been as nervous as I was the day I walked in the 2015 World Cup. I was just, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I was probably the third or fourth youngest person, but the opportunity to learn from some amazing people and broaden your skill set is something you can always do. But when you're given opportunities like that, then you do got to grab them with both hands. Hey,
I reckon the train incident almost was a blessing, because often, when people are interviewing you, they want to see you when you're being you.
Yeah.
Like, you're in a pretty tough spot there, and obviously you're able to sort of turn that into a positive, and that, at the end of the day, might have helped you. You know, if it was just a standard interview, you're just another candidate. But this guy's rushed back from Ballarat. He's battled a cancelled train, a delayed train. He's got dressed on the elevator, and he's running here, and he's somehow got here just 20 minutes after. I think he probably played in your hands. So it's a good story.
Yeah. It's I think so. And look, I think it says a lot about the culture, right? Around people. They obviously felt I was a good candidate, and the situation was beyond my control. Who's going to pass up an opportunity to work on a World Cup, right? I'm not deliberately trying to be late. So I think maybe it did, but it's a great crew of people who still keep in touch with a few as well.
But I think that's exactly the attitude that they would probably want to hire someone with, because you could have easily said, "No, this is too hard. I've stuffed up too much. I'm just going to go home." But if someone's thinking, "I'm never going to get this opportunity to work in the 2015 World Cup again," that's probably the ideal candidate.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess those major events, they don't roll around often, and roles are hard to come by. But when they do come around, the opportunities they bring, I'm sure people have said this before on here. My role was sort of community and comms, but I was doing stuff, events. I was doing. I ended up going to a lunch with a Bollywood superstar because I was the only person who wore a suit to work that day. It's just crazy, what happens in major events and the amount of people that are around it from a government perspective, commercially, both in the lead up to the tournament and in the tournament. They're just beasts, and there's so many things that come from it that are so interesting and rewarding and give you such personal and professional satisfaction. The other one, actually, I'll say is. So I got to take the trophy, like I said, around Australia for part of the trophy tour. And they always used to want to ship me off to Brisbane because my family's in Brisbane, my extended family, and my grandparents' house has photos of all the, when they first came to Australia and all this stuff, all the grandkids, but front and centre is me and my granddad and my cousin holding the World Cup trophy in his house. It's quite funny. It's quite a cool one that I keep reminding my sisters about and go, look, that's me in the middle of all the photos.
That is amazing.
No.
Let's dive into some of your community work again. Can you take us through a standard week or a standard day in your world and share with us what are some of the key programs that you're running at City at the moment? Yeah,
so I think the best part about it is no day's the same. So it is very varied in what we do. So we have sort of a standard Monday meeting with the team just to run through programs for the week, what schools we're at, what we're doing. And then we try to sort of drop in every couple of months a big thing, a big tournament, a big community tournament or a big event or something like that. So we're always sort of planning towards that. And then in terms of, I guess, so those programs sort of just tick along as they do, and we're constantly evaluating and making sure, the participants are getting the most out of it, that teachers and students are getting the most out of it, and we're meeting those marks around the impact we need to have from a social perspective as well as a physical perspective. And then in terms of the programs we're running, like I said, we really use football as that vehicle for connection. So we've got a program at the moment around respectful relationships. So we're starting to roll that out, and it's more around how we use play-based learning. So you do the football drills and skills, but you're constantly debriefing them and you're linking them back to themes around respect, resilience, rights. We overlay that with some stuff from our women's team, some footage of them answering questions around, relationships within a team, respect within a team, and how they operate, and individually the values that they have. And what that hopefully does is show a lot of young boys and girls that, in an elite environment, these athletes are thinking about this all the time. They're thinking about the relationship they have with their coach, the relationship they have with their teammates, the relationship they have with the sports science and the physios and each other. And that's really important, I think, because football's so powerful. Football's got such a role to play in society, given it's such a popular sport and such a well-participated sport. we need to be able to use it for good as well, and go beyond the field and around to have those conversations. So that's one of them. We're also doing some programs around education and employment. So we've got a program which actually some of your sports grads are in now, called Young Leaders, where we take young people, so 16 to 24. We put them through a couple of days of training around what we do at City, and then they essentially become our workforce in the community. So they come help run our community programs. And they also come and help run our match days as well. What we've seen from that is essentially people just grow. So in my team, I've got 2 that have come from that program and now full-time in City and the community. We've got others working in the academy. We've got others working in football ops, in roles where, they're sort of day-to-day player liaison almost on the ground with the players, both males and females. That's just an awesome story that I think we probably don't tell enough, to be honest, because we're essentially helping young people get jobs in sport. But it's a really good thing, and it helps us and it helps them, and it hopefully builds characters and strengths for the future for a lot of young people wanting to work in sport.
Is it Billy Bolch is a part of that?
He is the great man.
Yeah, one of our great sports grad members.
One of the greats.
He's doing a bit of time in Western United, which I let him know about.
Yeah.
And he said no.
Doing both.
Well, his heart's at City. You can only win plates every year at one club.
There was another couple that I've lost memory, but I did speak to Billy, and he mentioned it's great program. So it's awesome, and what an opportunity! Like, they're the kind of things you need to be doing to get out there. And as you said, you've had 2 people come through that and be full time like that. That's just a great story. So incredible. Being a head of community, are you out there as well, or are you more so in the office? How does that look?
I'd like to think I'm out there. The team will say otherwise. Yeah. No, look, I think it's really important to be out there, because when you're a big part of the role is looking at funding and looking to work with government around certain projects, and trying to solve problems for government as well, right? Particularly in how we can use football to do that. And I think if you're not out there at programs understanding what's on the ground and what the issues are, then you're kind of missing that. So you can talk to teachers as much as you want, or principals, or clubs, or whatever. But if you're not sort of talking to participants, on a regular, you've got to be doing that as well. So should be doing it more. I'm going to do it today, actually. Now that you've said it, I'm going to go out today and head out to a program.
Nice. Where's the program today?
What have we got today? We've got Casey Fields Primary, and we got Cranbourne East Secondary. So I might try it out to one of those schools today.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Players come with you?
Not this week, but when's this episode going out? I'm trying to surprise the school.
Probably a couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I'm hopefully taking Tilio and Callum Talbot out to school next week, and Lecky and Tommy Glover maybe as well.
Awesome.
So that'd be fun.
Nice. We'll try and keep this away from the school principals.
That knock it on the door, waiting to hear. So we'll hide it from them. In terms of working in community and sport, what do you need to do really well to get one of these roles? Can anybody just jump in, or is there a certain set of skills that someone needs to really have to be able to jump in?
Yeah, look, I think it's about people, right? So communities, people. I think this is, sport is so commercial these days, and it has to be for so many reasons, and there's no issue with that. I think the essence of sport is community, right, and people and connection, and the impact that can have on individual lives and collectively. So I think the skill set you need is just sort of being able to relate to people, be able to connect with people, there's space for academy coaching and all those sort of things. But if you can run a session with a whole bunch of kids and make it fun, and a primary school session, that's a skill set. Like, that's not easy. That's not for everyone. And there's a skill in that. And when you can translate that then further into how you can make impact around that, and the long-term effects that has, and impact that can have, that's a terrific skill set to have. And that's definitely one part of it. I think the other part of it as well is that being able to storytell is so important as well. So both, again, for City in the community, for us, a big part of what I've tried to do since I've come into the role is we've got amazing stories. We've got amazing young leaders who do great work in the community. We've got amazing schools and students that we work with in the area that we're in the southeast. Let's continue to tell those stories on socials and really ramp them up, because that's a huge part of what clubs want to be about and relate to people. That's what fans want to see. They want to see their club doing great work in the community. So it's a big part of it as well. And I think, and you guys know again from being in sport, we're such good doers, but we don't really stop and think, okay, how do we tell this story? How do we amplify this? How do we scale this up a little bit? So that's a big part of it for me.
So it kind of sounds like if you can understand what goes on in the world of a participant and make it fun for them, so it almost looks like it's like a bit of a coaching element to it.
Yep.
And then communicate it really well, then that makes a really good community person.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And I think, look, like I said before, let's like look at the sort of broader socioeconomic factors at the moment. Cost of living through the roof, sport a little bit in decline from a participation perspective. Our game, football, is so expensive to play, right, at a club level that, where's the outlet for a young kid who wants to play? And let's say there's 4 kids or 3 kids in a family, that's potentially $500 a kid. That's a lot of money, right? So people are missing out on those opportunities. And, I'm sure for you and me, like, when we were at school, like lunchtime and after school, they were great times to just connect with your mates and have a kick, right? Whatever sport you're playing, doesn't really matter. So people are missing out on those structured sporting environments and opportunities. So if we can help provide that, and coaches can run a session that allows young people to feel like, oh, I'm part of something bigger, I'm connected to Melbourne City, that coach knows my name, it's a huge, huge deal for a lot of young kids. And I think that's really powerful and really important.
And for people who want to get started in that space, what would you recommend people at that graduate level or people looking to make a change from another career, where would you recommend they start?
Yeah, well, look, I think you guys bang on about grassroots, and I'm not going to argue with you. Absolutely, like grassroots is really important for that. But I think also, like, if you can find ways of doing different types of coaching, everyone can roll out the grassroots stuff. But one thing I look for, in grads and different things is have you done time sort of in a remote community, or have you done time overseas, or have you challenged yourself in that way where you really put yourself out of your comfort zone? I'm just making it up. I did 6 months in Tanzania coaching football. Like, whoa, geez, tell me about that. Like, what's that about? And that's not for everyone, right? There's different factors that can allow you to do that, or maybe not. But those things really stand out, I think, because they're such good talking points. They're such good opportunities to be able to tell a great story about what you did, because everyone's doing it, but are you telling that story in the right way? And are you pulling out really good moments from that to share with your recruiters and with your interviewers?
I remember talking to a sport journalist years and years ago. His name's Ben Waterworth, and he said that to start getting a job in journalism within sport, you've got to be prepared to sacrifice that time to go out to the outer suburbs of your city to write match reports on Division 4 games of footy. And it sounds like those are the things that managers and recruiters really want to hear about. Tell me about that sacrifice and what you learnt in those regional parts and these community sports. Sounds like that's the same across a number of different functions.
Yeah, definitely. I think varied experience is always well received, right? So if you can say I've done this at grassroots, I've done this with Melbourne City, maybe did some community coaching with us or something, and I've done this in a remote community as well, or maybe you've worked in an Indigenous community, which is another string to your bow. Like, you're starting to all those really influential community segments that we look for around women and girls and Indigenous and multicultural communities. Like, you're starting to tick off a few of them, and that makes you such a great coach overall, and a better person in some ways as well, because you know so much about different people, and you can relate to different people, which is the most important part of it. So that's definitely one part of it, and then obviously the match day events from that perspective as well. Our team does a lot of work around getting the halftime kids out for a kick, and mascots who walk out with players, and that's chaos sometimes. Getting all them changed, ready, getting them back in their seats. That's a great experience too, because you're working with kids, you're working in a fast-paced environment, you're on broadcast, right? You got to go, right? Get them off. Kids are running everywhere. Like, it's if their skill sets, man, they're big time, and if you can do that well, and actually Josie in my team who runs that, shout out to Josie, she's an absolute superstar. She actually came through Young Leaders. She did that role on a match day. And we had a role coming up, and I remember it was my first 3 or 4 matches at City, and I was like, who am I going to fill this role with? Like, I don't really know where to start. I got down there, I saw her, the way she handled it, it was chaos. She still had time to say hello to me and say, how you going? And she's got him out there. I'm like, that's my girl. Like, I'm going after her. If she wants this job, it's hers pretty much. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice. In the community space, so much of your work is reliant on funding and grants and donations and whatnot. And I guess you're kind of constantly required to justify your work. Could you, how do you do that, and how do you work through that process? Because it can be quite frustrating at times, I can imagine. It's
a great point, mate. Look, it is tough. I think there's a few things. So you've got to keep that data around, how you're doing and the evaluations, and keep going back to that. As an example, we started a program recently at a school where the school came to us and said, girls just do not do physical activity at this school. That just flat out do not do anything. So we did a 2-day sort of program around leadership, football, community, all those sort of things, run by peer-to-peer, so like young female coaches. We then started a Friday afternoon football club at the school. We get 20 girls a week. Girls went out and bought boots. They played in a tournament that we ran a little while ago, and the teachers are like, they've done more physical activity in 10 days than they have in 2 years, basically. So I think those sort of anecdotes and stories are really important to tell and continue to share. Storytelling, again, I'll come back to that, on our socials is really powerful to be able to tell our story, to be able to show what we're doing, to advocate to government around the issues in the community. I think particularly from a state government and local government perspective, they're aware of the work that we do in the Southeast. They know how great a connection football can be to a community. So continuing to advocate is really, really important. And then I think finding really good partners as well. So in terms of, we know for us, we're a football charity. That's what we do. We do it really well. We provide great community programs. We have great match day opportunities and tickets, and we can bring players, and we can do all that stuff well. But if we were to talk about employment opportunities for young people more broadly, not just in sport, but how to get qualifications or something like that, that's not us. We need someone else to help with that. So we can then join forces with them on a program that helps meet that need. And those kind of agencies and community agencies really like what we do, because if they're to try to go out and run a session around that for young people, probably no one's going to turn up. City in the community going to turn up, run a football session, give out giveaways, you're probably going to get a few more people there. So so we can hopefully be that that really helpful partner to different community groups and agencies around Melbourne as well.
Amazing. And it sounds like if you've got the numbers to back it up and the stories to get in front of the the people in the suit and tie with the money, then that always helps keep it going.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Tell us about what it's like being part of City Football Group, because you guys are quite unique compared to other A-League clubs, which might just be one-off in a random part of Australia. You guys are part of this international network, including the likes of Manchester City, New York City, Mumbai's got a team. There's this massive global network. There's a lot of money being thrown around in this space as well. What is it like being part of that City Football Group?
Yeah, look, it's incredible to have that connection. I think there's that that stat around 25 professional sporting teams in Melbourne or whatever it is now. It grows every day, right? Like it's crazy. But no one has a genuine connection overseas in the way that we do at City, which is really unique and really, really special, I guess, in some ways. For me, what that means on a day-to-day is I have a head of community in Manchester and New York as well as a director of City Football Foundation who I sort of check in with every couple of weeks. So to be able to sort of have a touch point in those two cities to find out, how your community program's going, what are you guys facing on the ground, what are you doing from a fundraising perspective, is really, it's incredible to have that dial in and just, literally you flick a Teams note at 6 p.m. and you wake up the next morning, they're like, yeah, here's all this stuff that we're doing. I'm like, wow, like that's that's an incredible thing to have a resource to. So that's on that level. From another global perspective is through our Young Leaders program, we've done things where we've done a global Young Leaders. and that's usually coordinated by Manchester, and that runs once a year usually. And that's 40 young people from around the world who are involved in City in the Community programs coming together for a week of learning. You've got translators because people don't speak English. Like, it's an incredible experience. So we had 5 of our guys over there last year. What they've learned from that and the energy they brought back from that, from being based at Manchester City, literally sleeping in the first team rooms, right? So like one of the guys, he's like, you're room 20, which meant he was, or 21, which meant he was David Silva's room. What? He's an elite athlete. And they said just on the WhatsApp with the guys while they were over, they said, how'd you guys sleep? Are you all right? They're like, yeah, the bed was really comfortable. Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah.
They come back the next night and they go, we found out the beds cost like $10,000 Aussie or something. The mattress cost them. Like, jeez, great to be an elite footballer. So those opportunities exist, I think, through that Young Leaders program, and we had one in March where we had a few over to Abu Dhabi as well, where they were part of some of the city football schools over there, and again, incredible to meet people from Manchester, Mumbai, Indonesia, and New York as well. And how close, I was fortunate to be on that trip, and how close that group got, 15 people in 5 days is awesome. And, everyone's, almost crying at the end of it. And we've literally met each other 5 days ago just because you've had those experiences, and now you've got friends around the world and you're connected on socials, and really cool things to be able to do, and opportunities to give young people, which is cool.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of clubs would be very jealous to have that sort of support network, because I'd imagine like a lot of people who work in sport would go to a conference to find out new information, but you guys can just literally pick up the phone and call Manchester or New York and you've got all that. Yeah,
look, it is very unique, and we're very fortunate to be in that position. I think it's great to be able to lean on that when you need it, and even when you don't, just to check in with those guys and keep that network going. It is really fortunate. I think just, like I said, for young leaders and for young people, the friendships they can build from that, and hopefully that lasts over time as well, which is really cool.
The other thing that I look at and find quite remarkable is the way that City Football Group have been able to implement systems right around the world. Like, they've taken their successful system from Manchester and spread it right around the world. And now that's resulted in 3 consecutive Premier's plates in Melbourne. The academy is producing like half the Socceroos team. How have you seen the rollout of systems from City Football Group?
Yeah, I think from a football side, I think that it just speaks for itself really, with the on-field success, and like you said, the academy, graduates, Jordan Boss, and and those sort of guys coming through, which is awesome. And then commercially, it's probably not for me to comment on so much, but from a perspective of having those partners that are global as well, and then from a community perspective as well, which is awesome to have that network overseas and to be able to connect with them on a regular. So it's definitely a beast of an operation, and we're really fortunate, I guess, to be a part of it. And I think that the next extension of that is our new facility, which is being built at Casey Fields, which will hopefully be complete by September. And that's I'm fortunate enough to have a walkthrough of that a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's going to sort of shock a few people. Just the size and scale and the sophistication around it all is incredible. And again, learnings from Manchester and New York around how they've done things over there, and how we can have best practice for our athletes, but also for our admin and recovery and community as well in terms of community usage. So it's a terrific thing to be a part of.
But does every department get a playbook from head office or something and said, hey, this is how we do it, or do you guys get to create your own strategy and systems? How does it work?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I think it's one of those things where Manchester, from my perspective anyway, from a community one, they know what they do in Manchester. It's not going to work in Melbourne, right? They're a 2-team city. You're red or you're blue, and that's it. Whereas here, we're competing against so many different sports, so many different other factors. They know things are going to be slightly different, but I think that plays out in football and in commercial and in marketing and other spaces as well. So, you do what's best for Melbourne, but here's a support network around you to lean on to give a few ideas or a few resources where you need.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk work habits. Now, we know you worked with Max Abbott at the T20 World Cup, and when we had him on episode 132, he mentioned how Nick Hockley, the CEO at the time, would pick up the phone and call whenever he needed an answer. And we believe you carry a similar approach in order to obviously avoid death by email. Can you chat through that?
Yeah, well, Nick has an incredible work ethic. I'd get an email sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oof, I don't think I'm going to reply to that now. And then I'd wake up at 6 and he'd reply to his own email. Like this guy doesn't sleep. Hey, incredible work ethic, incredible guy. Look, I'm a big phone call guy. For me, like, I think sometimes in sport we take ourselves pretty seriously, and I think sometimes, like, you got pages and pages of an email that you get through, and you think, oh man, I can just call you. Like, let's just have a chat, man. Like, let's chat about this. So I do like the phone call. My team will probably tell you, stop calling me. But I'm within work hours. Like, I'm not calling them at unreasonable times. But I do like that because I think the death by email just gets me. I think that COVID sort of helps exacerbate some of that death by email as well. I think people just got real email happy and Teams happy. So we're losing the art of the phone call. So I'm just trying to help.
Yeah, nice.
I think when you can explain something and people can hear your voice explain it too, it actually adds context to what you're talking about as well. Yeah. Whereas if someone receives an email and just sits there, sometimes can be taken out of context. Whereas a phone call, you got the chance to discuss everything on the spot. Yeah. Look,
and I just like making those connections with people. I think it's just good to just have a chat and you kind of diffuse things if it's a bit tense, which it can be, and that's fine. That's going to happen in those environments. But I think sometimes, I'm one of those people that I'm very, what's the word, like, my wife thinks I have a little bit of ADD, but I see the long email, I go, am I going to read that whole thing right now? Probably not. So I think just if I can have the conversation, make the connection with you, and just go from there, I think that's a lot easier.
So even for people working with you, if they want to get whatever they want across to you, the best way is call Sunil. Don't send him paragraphs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and my team are really good at that now. Like, we're always on the phone. Yeah, because again, your office hours. Again, you're in your community, right? Like, if you're in a community team and you're sitting in your desk all day, like, I don't really think you're doing the right thing. So you got to be out there. So we're all sort of out there all the time. So it's important to have those check-ins, both as a team meeting, but then on the regular, a bit of a phone call is always really helpful as well.
When I was a student, I used to hate the phone call. So, like, the first time that I ever reached out to a professional in sport was would have been 2016. I think I was like second year uni of my second degree because I dropped out of the first one, and had this bloke's number. His name's Wayne, and was getting ready to call him, punch in the phone number, and then paced around my backyard for the next 25 minutes trying to bring myself to press call because I was terrified to talk to this guy. Yep. And it took a few years to get over that, and now it comes quite naturally. But for people starting out, it can be quite daunting in the beginning.
For sure. Look, this is what gen are we up to? Z, X?
Yeah,
lost track.
Yeah, lost track, yeah. But, texting, everything's texting, right? And, like, if you call, sometimes I have to call some of the casuals or whatever, right? They pick up straight away. And I'm like, wow, it didn't ring. And they're like, yeah, I'm just on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, there's not, like, they're always on.
One ring.
Yeah. Oh, not even. Like, just deathly silence and then hello. I'm like, oh, geez. But, yeah, this generation seems to be always on their phone but never making phone calls. So if you can get that confidence and make that call, it makes a huge difference. And look, you'll get better. Like, it is nerve-wracking. And people, particularly when you're asking for something, it's never easy. But when you can build up the confidence over time, it's a huge thing to be able to pick up the phone and just hold a conversation and not be super awkward, which you will be the first few times, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then eventually you get to Nick Hockley's status where you end up calling. I think Max's story was that Nick they were solving a problem around ticketing during the T20 World Cup, and so Nick thought, we'll call the person who knows the most about ticketing of any industry. So he calls the head of British Airways or something like that, just in the middle of a meeting. Yeah. Give me 1 sec, let me call the guy. Yeah. Eventually get to that point.
I'm in so many instances of that with Nick where you're just sitting in his office and it's like, what's going on with this? I'm like, I'm not sure. He goes, should I just call him? I'm like,
Just call him.
Just call me, like bang, just call. And I've actually, to be fair, taken that ethos now. I think to be honest, I've learned it more from Nick, where you want it done, go do it. Like just go do it, man. Like get it done and get it done well.
Awesome. Any final advice for grads coming through, or people wanting to work in this space?
Yeah. Look, I go back to that that testing yourself stuff. So where you can take time out to go and do something that's a bit different or a bit unique, that gives you a story that you're able to tell and tell well. Amazing to do, because that is such a great talking point. It sets you apart from other people, and that doesn't mean you don't do all the regular stuff you need to do, like volunteer at this event and volunteer at this club, and you do all that stuff. But then, what's that little whiz bang thing you've got there? Go, oh, that's an interesting talking point. What tell me about that experience where you went overseas, or you went to this remote community, or you travelled for a little bit and you gave yourself some great experiences. And for me, that was the Charlton experience. To be Australian working at a championship club. It was incredible. Like on the touchline, there's Harry Redknapp. He was director of football at QPR, I think, when we played them. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Like, it's just incredible to be able to be in that space and then come home and be able to tell people, you've done those things. So if you can do that stuff, and take that risk, it will pay off. Like, I genuinely believe it will pay off. And there were days where, in February, where I'm commuting an hour and a half to get to Charlton, it's raining. The endless winter keeps going, and I'm like, what am I doing this for? Like, we could just go home, or we could hold on for summer. I could do whatever job, get paid better, do a great summer vacation, and then go home for Australian summer. But I stuck it out for that season, and I'm glad I did, because it's paid off now for sure.
Nice. Before we wrap, any other apps people can listen to similar to Sunil?
Well, we had you meet all of Sunil's former colleagues at T20 World Cup.
The T20 World Cup crew.
Yeah, T20 World Cup crew. There's Ali in episode 1, Max in 132, Aaron Wharton in 1, and not 1. He was 63, I think. Oof. No, that was Aubrey Wharton. 59.
Are they like your kids? Like, do you just know every episode?
They are. Well, like I associated with a point in time.
Yeah.
It's like I remember 57, we kicked off with the first episodes in 2021, and we had 4 people starting with the letter A in a row. It was like Aman Alawali, 57, Aaron Wharton, 59. Then there was Abby from Carlton.
McNeish?
Abby McNish, 61, then Aubrey Walton, 63. Points in time I kind of associate it with.
Yeah.
He spends his time on the weekend just going through and testing himself on the numbers. So
fair enough, man.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff.
I had one more on the last one, if that's all right.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really passionate about as well is for grads in sport, and you look at elite sport now, right? Like Usman Khawaja, Sam Kerr, Peter Bol. Sport is starting to reflect our community a lot more, but in the admin space, it's not at all. I found myself being the only sort of person of a diverse background in most meetings in my whole career, pretty much. And it's something I really want to change. So, I'm really sort of passionate about seeing that diverse workforce come through. And I think we've done really well in the women and girls space. Obviously, still room to move there around that space. But in terms of different multicultural communities coming through and working in this industry, there's brought a bit of a two pieces to it. It's more like we've got to encourage that from a educational perspective to find this career and find this career in sport and how good it is. But then also finding the roles, when they eventually those roles come up, people are getting rewarded and taking those roles as well. So something I'm really passionate about and something I want to see sort of change within the industry, and hopefully that can help. You guys can help with that.
Yeah, well, for those people who are considering about, thinking about who do you hire, from our perspective and what we've seen in the community, that international cohort who have come from another country are some of the most hardworking grads that we come across, because they don't have their networks set up in the city that they're in. There's often pressure back home to make this jump across the world work in some way, shape or form. So there's a very real pressure hanging over their head, and it comes out in the form of volunteering at every single event, learning as much as they can, meeting as many people as they can, and they're amazing because of it. So if you are looking at international students to bring on as part of your workforce, there's some very good, hardworking people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, thank you so much for coming in. We've known each other for a few years now. We've been super keen to get you in here, and appreciate you coming in early in the morning before the work day. And it's just been awesome hearing about, obviously, your full career. I didn't know some of that early stuff, so it's fantastic to hear about that. And just this amazing work you're doing at City, and just seeing that flourish. And you mentioned that Young Leaders program. Like we've spoken about that a few times, and they're the kind of programs that are just so good for society. So I really appreciate you coming in and teaching us all about how this work happens. It's really, really awesome. So appreciate your time, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, boys. No, we love the work you guys are doing as well. I think it's great. And great to finally connect, and we'll hopefully do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, boys.
Guys, it's time now for the People's segment, Ask SportsGrad, where every week we answer a question directly from our community. If you would like to ask a question first, become a SportsGrad member at our website at sportsgrad.com.au/community. Then you can add your question to the Discord channel named Ask SportsGrad. Rubes, you've got this one this week, so what have we got?
Yeah, now this isn't a direct question that's come in from the community, but it's a preemptive question because I want to help a few people who might be feeling the same way as one specific member.
Yep.
And this member is Corey. He won't mind me saying this. We've chatted and laughed about it in hindsight, but at the Melbourne meetup November last year, he was in line waiting to come in, and I went up and said hi to Corey. And I said, "How are you?" And he goes, "Ruben, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shitting myself right now." And that is a perfectly normal state to be in when you're going to a networking event for the first time.
Yeah.
And we've just had the Brisbane meetup, which we haven't left yet for, and the Melbourne one's coming up soon. And so I want to answer the question that is how to not shit yourself before a meetup.
Great one. Love this.
So a couple of things to make sure you don't shit yourself before you get to a Melbourne meetup or any sort of meetup, wherever that is, or any sort of networking situation. Now, the one thing that will help you feel comfortable and relaxed arriving at a meetup is if you feel prepared to answer any question. Because I think at the core of being anxious about networking is being scared of what other people think.
Yeah.
And if you go dig even deeper into that, it's like, well, you're scared of what people are going to think of you if you don't know what to say next, or if your experience isn't impressive enough. So if you can prepare to, cover those situations, what do I say when I don't know what to say next? Or what do I say when I get asked about myself and I want to put my best foot forward? If you can prepare to answer those two things, then you'll go in a lot more confidently, knowing that, all right, if I run out of things to say, I know I've got a question that I can throw to the other person to learn more about them. And that will just give me a bit of time to take a deep breath and, not be the center of conversation for a second.
Yeah.
On top of that, if you can prepare to talk about your experience and what you're doing at the moment, where you work, some of the things you're plugging away at, or some of your future ambitions, if you know how to articulate that 10 times in a row almost identically, then when you get thrown into a pressure situation that's a little bit uncomfortable for you the first time, you'll be able to reel that off in a way that you are comfortable answering.
Yeah.
So do your preparation, have some things to cover yourself with, and then know what to say about yourself. And you should arrive at a meetup without shitting yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit less.
Yeah. You'll still probably shit yourself, but just not as much.
And then if you, even further to that, bring a friend.
Yeah.
Friend always just helps you feel more comfortable.
100%. Or if you're going, bring someone, or, if you're aware, say you're a SportsGrad member and you know someone else you've seen is going, message them beforehand and be like, hey, looking forward to catch up.
Yeah. So
when you get there, you could look out for them and just go there straight away.
Yeah.
But we know everyone shits themselves.
Yeah. We actually, I put a message out in the Discord channel the other day saying, hey, if anyone doesn't know anyone going to the meetups and wants to find someone beforehand, send me a message, I'll connect you.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of people who have done that. So if anyone else who wants to get connected with someone before the meetup, just ping Ryan or I, and we can connect you with someone else going, so you've at least know one person before you get there.
Yeah. No, love that. I've got another one for you, and this is something that is relatively new. But play a game with yourself. So when you arrive, play a little game in your mind and be like, what's the quickest I can take to go and talk to somebody? Because the shorter that time is, the less time you're going to shit yourself. Because I guarantee you, once you meet one person, your whole world will change. You'll get a bit of confidence. So like, play that little game. When you get to the Melbourne meetup, when we're all done, when we're in there, just go and introduce yourself to somebody straight away, and I bet you anything, you'll feel better.
I've got another game for you.
Here we go. We're playing networking games.
If you want to get even more comfortable before you arrive, say you're going into the MCG to watch Melbourne versus the Blues, and you're catching the train into Richmond Station. Say hi to someone on the train. Then your first interaction is out of the way.
Yeah.
Or even just go up to the metro attendant at Richmond Station and ask them a dumb question that you already know the answer to.
Yeah.
But at least you've spoken to a stranger. That might just help break the ice and give you a bit of confidence.
Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, you'll be fine.
You will be fine.
It'll all work out.
People are friendly.
They are. Alrighty, awesome. Well, if you'd like to ask us a question or ask our friends in sport a question, sign up and become a SportsGrad member. Each week, as Rube said, we've got plenty of discussions in our Discord. We've got plenty of help there for you to ask any questions, and you can also get involved in our podcast questions as well. So get involved. We've also got speed networking. We've got job fairs. There's always something happening inside our community. They're all recorded as well, so you can go back and have a look at them if you can't make them on any particular time. So there's lots of content there ready to go for you. Find us on LinkedIn, plus give us some love with a rating if you enjoy the show. Subscribe on Apple or follow on Spotify. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.